afternoon, everyone. Myself, I'm Sinjumol Rajan, as a PhD student at Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Mumbai. For today's presentation, my topic is classification of toxic gases using electronic noise based on zinc oxide nanowires and Kelvin probe measurements. For today's presentation, the outline is Introduction to ENOS, Experimental Section, Creation of Data Repository, Machine Learning Models, Conclusion. So here I'll give a brief idea about the introduction about the ENOS. By definition, ENOS is an intelligent chemical sensor array system that mimics the mammalian olfactory system. You can see here the basic schematic representation of electronic noise or ENOS. When the odor or gas come into the picture, it will interact with the multiple sensor array. And from the multiple sensor array, data acquisition will get the information and it will create a data repository. Once you get the data repository, you can go for the data processing and pattern recognition algorithm. The pattern recognition algorithm will tell you the result where you can quantify or quantify the gases or odor which was interacted with the sensor material. And components of electronic noise, it consisting of a sensor array, which is the heart of the electronic noise, and then signal conditioning and signal processing, data gathering. Once you get the data, you can go for the data pre-processing, which is the initial stage of the machine learning models. Then you apply appropriate pattern recognition algorithm. Using that, you can classify the gases. If you see the literature survey, there is a huge demand on electronic noise technology. There are many companies that are available in the market for the electronic noise development, and most of them are customized products for environmental monitoring, healthcare, or food industry, or medical field, etc. And here I'll show the experimental section. First, we have to fabricate a multiple sensor array for the gas mixture analysis. For that, on top of the glass substrate, we have made the zinc oxide nanowires by chemical route method. After that, zinc oxide nanowires have been grown by hydrothermal process. And on top of the zinc oxide nanowires, the surface has been modified with different sensitizers. Surface modification of the sensor surface is an effective way to realize sensors that are sensitive and selective towards the specific gases. And here you can see the top view of the sensor, and here you can see the actual sensor, how it looks like. So for the final contact, we made the gold electrode deposition on top of this sensitizers using thermal evaporation technique. And in the present work, modification of nanowire surface has been accomplished by depositing thin layer, which means less than 10 nanometer of gold, copper, nickel by thermal evaporation method. Addition of a thin layer of sensitizers of nanowire surface results in the formation of the heterojunctions. And once we fabricate the sensor surface, we can go for the data acquisition. And for data acquisition, we have been used two instruments. One is tabletop gas sensing sensor unit, which have been developed in the BRC gas sensing unit section. And here we have a chamber, and it consists of 7 sensors. At the same time, you can measure 7 sensors simultaneously. And here we can inject the gases. And next one is for using this tabletop gas sensor unit, we have been taken the sensor response of the multiple sensor array. And next one is Kelvin probe measurements. And the work function of sensor film grown on the glass substrate was measured using ambient scanning Kelvin probe microscope. And the sensor films were exposed near their operating temperature to near saturation, say 220 ppm of each target gases. This step was followed by immediate quenching of the sensor film to room temperature where they were unrecoverable. This ensured that the measurements were carried out while sensor film were still under the effect of gases. So once you get the data repository, we can go for the appropriate pattern recognition algorithm. There are many techniques are available for qualitative and quantitative analysis, namely principal component analysis PCA, linear discriminant analysis LDM, hierarchical cluster analysis HCA, support vector machine SVM, decision forest DF classifier, etc. Why do want to do the pattern recognition algorithm? Actually, we have to create a data bank. Data bank can be constructed from the non-gases, can be used further to train a pattern recognition algorithm so that unknown gases can subsequently be classified and identified. Here you can see the surface morphology and structure of the sensor array. Here is the SEM image and SEM image of the zinc oxide nanowire drawn hydrothermally, having diameter 50 to 200 nanometer, length 1 to 2 micrometer. And here the hexagonal pattern. Here I have shown the hexagonal pattern of pure zinc oxide nanowire and zinc oxide nanowire modified with the copper oxide. And there is no characteristics peaks for the impurity. There is no shift or peak due to copper oxide. And obtained hexagonal zinc oxide structure is exactly matching with the ICDD number. So what actually why we have done the surface modification is that just enhancing the sensing mechanism. And here you can see the effect of the sensing sensitizers on the top of the zinc oxide nanowires, and addition of a thin layer of sensitizers, namely gold, copper, nickels, to the surface of the nanowires improves the sensor response and specific towards the desired gas. For example, in the case of gold, modified zinc oxide nanowire surface is decorated by randomly distributed discontinuous filling along the length of nanowires. This makes nano Schottky type barriers between gold and zinc oxide. So you can see that before the contact or before doing the modification on the surface, there will be or metal and N-type semiconductor will be separated, and there will be a difference in the Fermi level. But once it come to the close proximity, or once it deposit on the surface or at the equilibrium, what happened at the equilibrium, the Fermi levels coincide, causing electrons moving from the N-type semiconductor, M-type zinc oxide to metal gold, so that there is a formation of positive charge on the surface of the zinc oxide surface. This creates a surface potential barrier that can alter upon absorption or desorption of the gases. Similarly, in the presence of copper, nickel leads to the formation of nano heterojunction over the zinc oxide nanowire surface. And these are the gas response obtained using static gas sensor unit. And here the work function and the Kelvin probe. Why do you want to use the work function? Actually, the gas sensing is a surface phenomenon where the top 5 to 10 nanometer of the surface plays a crucial role in the governing sensing mechanism. In semiconductors, the surface chemistry of physisorbed ions, oxygen ions, affects the band bending model. The surface properties can further be controlled by engineering of Fermi level, work function, ionization energy, etc. Kelvin probe is such a technique that allows the monitoring of variation in the work function induced in the sensing layer upon gas interaction. This can be further used to determine the surface and band bending electron affinity. Here you can see that map of work function by Kelvin probe microscopy. Basically, it will have a gold tip and a gold reference electrode, and here is our sample. And here is the principle of Kelvin probe measurement. In the Kelvin probe working principle, there is an electrical force is generated between the tip and the sample surface due to the difference in the Fermi level of the tip and sample. When the system is at equilibrium state, there is an alignment of Fermi level due to band bending between tip and sample. This is shown in this band diagram. So the tip and sample surface will be charged since it acts like a parallel plate capacitor, and on apparent a contact potential difference will form. This contact potential difference is measure of work function difference between tip and sample. And once you know the work function of the tip, you can calculate the work function of the sample. And here is the work function map scan over the sample area around 1.27 into 1.27 millimeters square using Kelvin probe technique. In this figure, it shows the change in work function of zinc oxide nanowire pure and after the surface modification with the different sensitizers. Modifying the surface of nanowires using different sensitizers leads an increase in the average work function. Increase in the average work function is due to heterojunction interface between zinc oxide and sensitizers. So because of this upward, you can see the value when the zinc oxide nanowire was pure, the work function was 5.01, but once it modified with the different sensitizers, there will be upward increase in the work function. This is due to the nano heterojunction formed between the zinc oxide nanowire and the different sensitizers. And here this figure shows the change in work function of zinc oxide nanowire surface modified with the sensitizers after the exposure of gases. Here we have taken 20 ppm of NO2 H2S and their mixture. And here you can see that there is a change in work function of these sensors after the exposure of these gases. Actually, this implies that formation of potential barrier at the interface between zinc oxide nanowire and copper oxide and its variation with the H2S and NO2 exposure and its binary mixture alters or improves the sensor response. And so now, like from our experiment, we have taken different inputs like work function, electron affinity, band bending, sensor response are taken as the input variable for the machine learning models. Actually, what does mean by machine learning? By definition, machine learning is making the computer learn from studying data and statistics. Machine learning is a step into the direction of artificial intelligence. Machine learning is a program that analyzes data and learns to predict the outcome. There are different types of machine learning algorithms, namely supervised learning, semi-supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, etc. So what is exactly done with this machine learning algorithm is first data collection, then we are making a modeling. After that, once the model is ready, we are training the system, and once we train the system with the known labels, we can go for the unknown labels. So training is the important part in machine learning, and later evaluation. So after that, we'll get the result where we can quantify the gases or classify the gases. And machine learning pattern recognition, there are many techniques. So these are the techniques that have been used for this study. PCA, principal component analysis, is an unsupervised dimensionality reduction technique. So here what we are doing, capturing the direction of maximum variation in the data set. And the first principal component, PC1, formed by PCA, will account for maximum variation in the data. PC2 does the second maximum variation, and so on. So using this PCA, if you have unlabeled or it is unsupervised machine learning, so it will cluster the data. While doing the clustering, we can get some groups. In LDA, it's a supervised dimensionality reduction technique. Here, supervised means we have to we have the non-labels. So supervised dimensionality reduction technique, LDA, and the LDA 1 is the first new axis created by linear discriminant analysis, will account for capturing most variation between groups or categories, and then comes LD2 and so on. For the classification, we can go for the supervised machine learning models. And one more is that decision forest. Decision forest classifier. The decision forest procedure implements a machine learning process to predict observation from the data. It creates models of two forms. One is classification of models that divide the observation into groups based on their observed characteristics, and recognition model that predict the value of dependent variable. The models are constructed by creating a large number of decision trees and averaging the prediction made from those trees. And here the result obtained from the PCA. Here you can see this is the PCA, three-component PCA plot. And here these different colors are indicating different gases, H2S, NO2, and their mixture. And clustering the gases with the percentage of variance of PC1, PC2, PC3 are 95.38, 4.50, and 0.10% respectively. So here you can see that in PC1 having large amount of variance, that means it will have more information. And then from that we can extract the eigenvectors. And here the eigenvectors or PC loading plot is here. By investigating the eigenvectors or loading of the principal components, it is possible to find out magnitude and direction of the eigenvectors for each sensor for each target gas, and is best suitable for clustering of the target gases. Here you can see that there is three principal components, and here is the sensor array, and how these eigenvectors are, which direction it is going, and its magnitude will tell us or will help us to classify the gases. And while plotting the component weights or PC loading, it will tell you how the principal components and the variables, input variables, are correlated. For example, in the case of first variable, sensor response, the first three principal components are correlated positively. That means if one increases, other one also increases. But in the case of second, work function, which is the first two principal components are correlated negatively, and third one is correlated positively. So we will get an idea about how these principal components and variable are correlated. And here is the LDA plot, and LDA plot classifies the gases with the variance of 0.67 and 0.25 for LD1 and LD2 respectively. And here also you can see different gases has been classified using LDA plot. And LDA classified the gases wherein the between class variance is found to be maximum than within the class variance. That is the advantage of LDA. LDA will classify the variance between the classes than within the class variance. The gases, namely H2S, NO2, and their mixture, have been represented in the figure using different colors, namely orange, red, blue, respectively. And DF, decision forest classifier. Here you can see that a decision forest tree structure of a selected tree in the forest at which there are 11 nodes. 5 of the nodes are associated with a binary decision with the branches to the left and right. So here total 11 nodes are there, and 6 of the nodes are terminating leaves. Terminating leaves will give you the result. The predicted gas observation arriving at the node is shown here. For example, how to read this decision forest, you can start from here. If the statement or if the decision is true, you have to go to the left side, otherwise you have to go false. If it is false, you have to go the right. So work function is less than or equal to 5.27. If it is true, you have to check with the other decision, that is sensor response, which is less than or equal to 3.5. If the decision is false, you can go for the right, and you will get a result that is the result is mixture of these two gases. So while analyzing this DF classifier, we can classify the gases very well. And here is my conclusion. Zinc oxide nanoparticles and nanowire have been successfully synthesized by chemical route and hydrothermal method respectively. A set of multiple sensors have been fabricated with the different sensitizers, namely nickel, gold, copper, using physical vapor deposition. Set of fabricated multiple sensor array have been exposed towards NO2 and H2S gases individually and its binary mixture. The data acquisition have been carried out using tabletop sensor unit using LabVIEW software. The data repository was prepared by recording the work function value along with the sensor response, band bending, electron affinity using ambient Kelvin probe microscopy. And PZA clustered the gases with the percentage of variance of PC1, PC2, PC3 as 95, 4.5 and 0.10% respectively. And LDA plots classifies the target gases with the variance of 0.67 and 0.25 for LD1 and LD2 respectively. Using the combination of both unsupervised machine learning model, namely PZA, and supervised machine learning model, LDA and DF classified the gases very well. I have to acknowledge Dr. A.K. Demnath is my research guide. Dr. N.S. Damkir is my co-guide, and all gas sensing unit members, BRC Mumbai, and Organization Committee of International Webinar on Biomaterials and Nanotechnology Dubai for giving me a chance to present my work here, and my funding agency, CSIR and UGC.